Good morning, everybody. I'm very excited today to be here for International Women's Day, and we're doing another masterclass for Nexus. And I'm welcoming two absolute powerhouses of industry from fund management and retail. And they're going to tell us a bit about how they got to where they are today, what they're excited about in the UK and business. And I'm really looking forward to hearing about both their stories. So we've got Jackie Norton and Jacqueline Coy. So Jackie, would you like to go first and tell us a bit about your career?
Yes, I'm Norton, and I started my career back in the day, very traditionally, in retail. And I was very fortunate to get a place on Marks and Spencer's management scheme, which was much sought after back in the day. We're talking last century. And in those days, you could quite happily leave school with what were then called A levels and get a management training position. Businesses were much more invested in training, and I think it feels like that's coming back again. But it was a great place to start your career because Marks and Spencer had a great reputation, and everything I have today, even now, not to do necessarily with the specific knowledge, but the professional approach to business, I feel was really embedded in me from that time. So one thing I would say to anybody, particularly if they're young, and I still say it today when I meet people and they don't know what to do, youngsters, is go and work in a business that has a good reputation and learn, even if it's not the absolute thing you want to do, just learn the ropes in a professional business so that you know how a professional business works. That might not very well be that you're going to do that the rest of your life, but it gives you a grounding and a backdrop, particularly if you maybe want to go on an entrepreneurial journey. Because many entrepreneurs I meet now, who have maybe just always been entrepreneurs, don't have that roadmap, that kind of cultural grounding that you get from a professional business. So I started in Marks and Spencer's on the shop floor. I was in men's trousers, and I had this lovely lady who trained me in Crawley. After about a year, I realised I was very young to be doing this with a polyester uniform and a little name badge. And I met my friends who'd gone to university, and I thought, oh, I'd like to do that. So I told them I'd like to do that. And they said, that's fine, come back when you've graduated. And then they came back to me and offered to sponsor me to do a business studies degree, which I, of course, took eventually because it was a very generous sponsorship. And they offered me to do a job in head office at the end of it all, so I could go into the buying department, which is what I did. But I very quickly worked out, once I was started in Marks and Spencer's, that I was always coming up against the organization because I was a bit outspoken. I was a bit of a maverick. And so I left. And now that was very unusual in those days. A lot of people have spent literally their whole lives in Marks and Spencer's. They literally threw me out on the street because they didn't know what to do with me. Like I was going to go off with all their trade secrets or something. And I had to phone my department from Selfridges to say that I'd actually left. I then went to work for an entrepreneurial business, which was the complete opposite end of life. It was absolutely mad. I struggled in that, and I eventually ended up at Debenhams after it was bought by Burton Group. I went through Debenhams, morphed into Arcadia, and I ended up as a brand director for Topman in that very exciting time in the 90s when retail was really taking off in the UK. As I traveled around the world, shopping and developing product and managing the team. And I ended up, my highlight when I look back really was opening Topshop Topman in Oxford Circus in 1999, just before the millennium. And that was a bit of a moment. And it's actually something that I really cherish now. And so many people can remember that happening, and so many people have great memories of Topshop, which obviously doesn't exist anymore. Now, unfortunately, I had to give up my career then because I had family illness, and I realised I couldn't carry on, with a big job with lots of responsibility. So I left. And then I had a period of about 15 years where I just reacted to whatever came my way, in a way, because I had to put food on the table. I had a family, I had to pay the bills. My husband couldn't work anymore. And opportunities came my way. So one of the things I would say to anybody is be always curious, right? Never say no. I've ended up the last few, so many years of my career doing things I had no idea what they were. People just said, why don't you come to this work in my business? You seem a bit commercial and you can set up this entrepreneurial incubator. Entrepreneurial incubator, thought I. Don't really know what that is, but it sounds interesting. So I did it. And then I went from there to say, well, how do you raise money for entrepreneurs? So I went into the city and I met private equity and corporate finance. No idea what they did, learned all about it. I then ended up advising in corporate finance for retail and fashion businesses. Didn't know what that was all about, learnt all about it. So keep an open mind, grasp opportunities. There's no problem ever saying, I don't know, but you're open to learn. Because the reason people are presenting you with an opportunities is they think somewhere in there, in all that mess of you, that there is something you have to offer, right? So that's what I would say to anybody. Fast forward to today, I am almost 40 years into my career. I've been in and out. It's been very squiggly. I've learned lots of different things. So I've gone from doing frocks, fashion, color palettes to EBITDA multiples in corporate finance. And I now found myself to be an accidental angel investor because I downsized my life. I find myself to have some somewhat excess funds, not a lot, I've hastened to add. And rather than do the classic thing, which is give it to a financial advisor to invest for you, I thought, no, I'm going to invest it myself. I love entrepreneurs. I've worked around entrepreneurs for about 20 years now. I think I have a bit of an entrepreneurial brain. I speak entrepreneur, which is very important because they're a bit of a, you guys who are entrepreneurs out there, a bit of a crazy bunch, really. One of the reasons you're being an entrepreneur is because you don't want to take instruction. You don't want to fit into a structure. You want to do your own thing. And I understand that not everybody does. And so I have taken the opportunity to invest a little bit of money in a range of businesses, particularly run by women, particularly run by 50 plus women, because there is a whole raft of new people coming to the market, which is women in the second part of their lives saying, do you know what, I'm going to do the thing I've always wanted to do now. And I've invested in some of those women. So that is where I sit today as an accidental angel investor, having had a very squiggly career full of new learnings. So just be curious and always take opportunities when they present themselves.
Wow, thank you, Jacket. That was wonderful and super inspiring because we now find ourselves very much in a portfolio career society. And I love the themes of resilience weaving through what you've been up to. And I'd love to hear.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah, Karen.
so yes, I was going to say, I didn't really particularly focus, but during that time, which sounds like it's all been a breeze, it hasn't been a breeze because, I had to deal with a terminal illness of my husband who died. I had to deal with, unfortunately, somebody who wasn't as good as they should have been, stealing my pension. So I had a lot of knocks along the way. But of course, all of those things you have to respond to and pick yourself up and carry on.
Fantastic. It's a great theme for International Women's Day. So Dr. Jacqueline Coy, I'd love to hear about your story. And I know again you've woven a magical path. So love to hear more.
Hi, thanks for inviting me, Z. I was the archetypal bad girl. Some still say I still am today. I drank, I smoked, I did very badly at school, and I got pregnant at 16. I was the girl that many would write off. In fact, my dad was really traumatized by me pregnant at 16. And he told me, oh, you have to go to medical school and be a doctor because then at least you can support yourself. So it never really inspired me. But the failure, I think, of the British education system is by 18, you have to decide what you want to be for the rest of your life. I've always been nerdy, but I wasn't disciplined. And I remember when I was at sixth form college, they were trying to place us into where they think we fit. And I've always been very good at numbers. I'm autistic. I can actually see numbers in my head. But on my first day in IBM in Coal Harbour, which is now closed, my mom had to pick me up within 2 hours because I broke into their offices and I had gotten into somebody's computer and I was messing around. So that was really, my dad was really despairing, but my mom, a testament to women's belief in one another. My mom believed in me when nobody would. My mom, even when I told her I was pregnant at 16, very defiantly, she says, oh, babies, what a good news. She's Welsh. I do quite a good Welsh accent. So everything I do is a testament to my mom's belief and support of me. I did end up in Oxford. I did end up having the initial DR in front of my name. I did theoretical physics in Oxford on a fully funded scholarship, which I won. So what did I do? Well, I ended up in investment banking because I had four children by then. By the time I was 26, I had four children, and my children's father, absolutely beautiful man, our most wonderful father. He is not that into making money, and I wanted to live in Knightsbridge, so I had to go out and earn money. I arrived in a Swiss bank. And as Jackie says, it's good to learn a discipline, to be in a real trade, to learn a discipline rather than start by just being an entrepreneur. Because even though I felt really great about myself, I literally spent the first 6 months working on presentations, as in PowerPoint, not speaking. I was in a back room working in presentations. I'm 58, so you're talking about going back 30 plus years ago. These days, they use AI. But before AI, the company now sends a presentation to India to be done. So it's there the next morning. But 30 plus years ago, it's people like me, those with PhDs working on presentations. I complained and I was sent to Zurich to work in the Zurich Stock Exchange, working on PowerPoint Excel, not trading. So that was my discipline. But it paved the way for my biggest career hit ever, biggest career break, I suppose. I worked for Barclays, and I started as a strategist, and with an acquisition of Wells Fargo Nickel Investments, it became Barclays Global Investors, and I headed the Japan Quant Fund. So suddenly there I was, I'm in big time managing 800 million pounds of equities for institutional investors. I managed teams across 3 continents, and I was permanently on planes and being very stressed out, but having really, really good income. And then, of course, I took early retirement to be a full time mom. I had sufficient war chest to enable me to do so, to never work again. But I got bored sitting on the beach. I know it sounds weird. I got bored. So when my youngest daughter uh, came back to university, we were sitting in Phuket actually, just the most beautiful paradise. We came back with her, and I wanted to do something, but I didn't want to work in an investment bank again, and I don't have a trade. I can't be a teacher or anything. So I decided, like Jackie says, in my 50s, I decided to do something for myself that I always wanted to do. And that something is to address inequality that I see around me when it comes to women, especially those of lower socioeconomic background, those ethnic minorities, those who are just out of society simply because they don't speak English, they don't have access to education, and they are not in supportive environment. So that's what I thought I would do. But I'm very fortunate that I've got great advice throughout. And one of it is from my lawyer, actually, the legal counsel for my startup, who advised me if I start a charity, I'll forever be going around with a begging bowl. It's far better to start a mission driven venture, which is what Sophia Health is right now. It's a mission-driven venture. We do corporate events, and we fund that. We use that funding to support where my heart is, the women in community centers who have just had such a rough deal in life. And in their 40s and 50s, basically their best years are over. And I want to change that. I want to switch that round to live the best years of our lives, doing something for ourselves for once. Like Jackie said, I've been, Georgina's mom, Jack's mom, Katharina's mom, Kit's mom, Nikki's mom for most of my life. Now I'm me. And I want to empower other women to do that. Thanks.
I love it. That's an amazing journey, and the fact that you turned it completely around. Yeah, it's a wonderful story, very inspiring for the audience. And I'd love to talk to you for hours about it, actually. I'm looking forward to the TV series. So yeah, so what we'd like to do now is a few questions, and I've got a few hot takes for you both, and then we've got some questions around growth and power. So, and as it's International Women's Day, I'm concentrating about female entrepreneurs and how they build businesses. So my first hot take is the UK undermining women founders, or are women just out competing quietly? Who would like to answer? Who fit?
Well, I'm happy to come in that. I would say it's not only the UK, the world has long underestimated women in general, not just founders. But are we out competing? Well, we are a long way off the starting block. We're still playing catch up, unfortunately, in this developed nation in 2026. But you know what? Women are building high performing companies with less noise, with less capital, and with more discipline. We are doing that, but we are still playing catch up. However, the good news for me that I see is that the government in the UK are finally waking up to that. And a big milestone for me, but probably a small one on the grand scheme of things, is that last year in October, the government announced that menopause advice is going to be given as part of free checkups when women go to their GPs. They are suddenly recognizing that women in their 50s, when their fertility has stopped, they are still productive members of society. And for me, yes, we're still playing catch up, and I hope the environment will improve for us from now on.
Likewise, definitely. So would you say, either of you, that women are building better businesses or just more resilient ones?
Well, I would say women are building different sorts of businesses, and it's a bit of a generalization, but I think women tend to be a little bit more heart driven, if you like. I mean, if you go to any entrepreneurial course, and you're looking at a business or developing a business, it's always, big question is, what problem does it solve? What is the need? Because I sometimes meet people who've got a great idea, but I'm thinking, well, is there, you've got to check that some people want what you're going to develop, right? So I think women particularly come from the place of, and it particularly tends to be women, as Jacqueline has just said with her business and her mission driven business, that you see the problem and you want to address the issue. And I think that's where a lot of women come from. There's a lot of noise about women not getting funded. I think everybody's waking up to that. I think that's happening. And I think it's up to women. It's not just about the funding not being there. We have to learn to ask for money. And fundamentally, it's not in our DNA, right? It's not in our DNA. And what I hear coming back from funders is that they hear from a woman and she does her pitch, and then they don't, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze, sorry. And then they don't hear from her again. Investors, because it's fundamentally, it has been a male dominated industry, expect you to chase the money. And we're not used to doing that. We're used to sort of saying, please, this is my idea. It'd be really nice if you could give me some money. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing from you. Shut the door, right? You have to go back. You have to carry on the conversation. And investors want to hear you being passionate about that, really pursuing hard that you want this money, why you want the money, to keep going back to them. And I think so women have we can't just sit back and say it's not fair, we don't get the money. Women, we have to support women and help women ask for the money in a better way, in a stronger way, and more confidently, because I work with a lot of women who do struggle to raise funds, and it's not that they haven't got a good business, it's because they don't know how to work the system. So that to me is the little bit of the bit of the ask that we're doing. And I think that's starting to change. There's lots of accelerators and supportive enterprises out there that will help women ask for money. But I think the gap is closing. And what we also know is, particularly post 50, those businesses started by women have a better chance of success. And I think women definitely, all I hear, they bootstrap, they're usually quite cautious, they're not so gung-ho, because they feel they're going to be judged if they haven't got a successful business. So I think women are a little bit more careful. So I think it's looking good for women, but it's still tough.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. And as I work in fundraising for people, I would definitely say it's true that you have to be overtly confident when you're talking about your business and also fundraising, because you're, like you said, you're up against a lot of competition, and then maybe exited founders that have raised again and again. So it just shows the confidence in your business and yourself if you chase up investors.
Yeah. Well,
So
you know that better than me, don't you? Because that's what you do. I mean, you're very good at that.
absolutely, absolutely. I've learned a lot over the last sort of 10 plus years. Just going to get rid of that. So what's one behavior male founders could learn from female founders immediately? I'd love to hear from both of you. Jacqueline, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I could start. Well, it would require rewiring the male biology, unfortunately. It's so easy to change, but I'm sure it can be learned. Evolutionary biology, women, we are nurturers. We support each other. We raise each other up. Whereas men, they are born to compete. So I've been to so many of these gatherings, these founders gathering, and all you hear the men say, most of them, is how great their businesses are, how wonderful they're doing, their successes, their achievements. Whereas women is, what do you do? Where are our common touch points? How can we meet up and see we can help each other again? And it's like me and you, Z, we were introduced, and I didn't immediately think, oh, Z, how can you help me? And you don't think, oh, how can I help you? Immediately we're like, we have fun, right? We went to an art gallery, we went to a private club opening, we have laughed, we decided we like each other, and we spend time together. Who knows, something may come out of it, but our primary motivation is to support each other and grow our network. I think that's a beautiful thing, because in life, it's not about building another successful venture. It's about the people you meet along the way, the impact you have on their lives, and on your deathbed, how you have lived your life. I think that's all very important. And maybe, like Jackie says, it counts against us when we are not chasing money. And I don't want to chase all the time. But at the same time, I recognize that I have to switch that on, have a whiteboard and say, yeah, you've got to call this person, call that person. So I think, male founders could learn a bit more about supporting each other and us, of
Yeah.
course.
Yes, of course. And my word for that, well, I was going to say empathy. I think male founders, in my experience as well, that as Jacqueline has articulated, we are fundamentally different. We're the nurturers, they're the hunter gatherers. So they're born to compete, and particularly in the world of finance and entrepreneurialism, they will tend to be usually, but not always, a more alpha type male, which is quite a dominant male, who will be out there beating their drum. They will tend to be, it's very important to them that they're respected in their communities. They need to be seen to be doing well. And so and I see some male founders, and I can tell they're under tremendous pressure, but they won't say it's going a bit wrong. They'll just say, yeah, everything's fine, and I know it's not. Fine. So I think that number one is a bit of empathy for themselves and for other entrepreneurs who work together with other people, and empathy particularly for when they're building teams, to understand, to listen to their teams, and understand, because when you're building a team, the first bit of team is going to be small. You need to know what makes all of these people tick. Right. So it's not just, are they executing? You need to understand your team. You'll get much more out of them. So I think for them to learn a little bit of the females, bring their female side out in team building, and also with working with others. And I can see it with younger entrepreneurs now. Younger men are actually working more in communities of other guys. They've got a different attitude, but I still see it amongst the older generation, are still kind of, being the sole lion out there, beating the drum. So I think we can all learn from each other. And what we have to learn from men is just to be a bit more demanding, watch what men do and say, well, I've got to try a bit of that.
Wonderful. Yeah. Empathy in fundraising is a skill that it could definitely be more center stage. So putting your investor hats on, in deal room mode, as investors, what would make you lean in, what do you like hearing from founders? What catches your eye in general?
Well, for me, I am out and out a heart investor. So for me, it's the founder story. So all the businesses that I've invested in, I've been, the light has gone on quite quickly when I've heard their story. And then I only invest in businesses where I sort of hang out with the founder quite a bit. I get to know the founder quite well. I'm not an arm's length investor, and I feel empathy, and I feel I understand that person, that we have a good relationship, and that's when I invest. And I also always insist on being on board of, close to the business, because I want to look after my money effectively. But also what I really enjoy, and really, I suppose, to be honest, the real reason I do it is because I then have a seat at the table, because I love the entrepreneurial journey. And it's part of what feeds my soul, is to watch businesses grow, to see business people do well. And it's blooming tough. And so if somebody does do well, it's just fantastic to be play in that field, play in that game. And that's kind of why I invest, which is probably all the wrong reasons. And if there was a man sitting here, they'd go, oh my God, she's crazy. But I'll be honest, that's what I do. And I've invested in, I think there's a couple of really good businesses I'm invested in, and I think they'll do well. So, I'm hopeful.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Well, my answer is slightly different from Jackie's. Some similar points. But as a former investment banker and putting that hat on, you can't undo your past. You lived through it. It's my most mind-shaping time being an investment banker. And I've lived through the dot-com boom. I would say it's the numbers, because we can't live in a Ponzi scheme. We can't hope to make money from a Ponzi scheme. And what makes me check out immediately, even though I'm not an investor right now, what made me check out when I was an investment banker is an overly slick deck. The frog and the Rolex watch slide, where the owner of the frog would say that his frog is a better deal than a Rolex watch because both can tell the time, only that his is organic and doesn't hurt the environment. So I would say the numbers, and that's what I take care of as a founder. I make sure that my numbers are believable and achievable, rather than hot air. But to resonate with what Jackie says, the team is also very important, because it's a team that makes the numbers work. You can have the best business plan, you can have the strongest, most realistic numbers, but if the management team falls apart, then everything disappears in the smoke. And the management team, my management team, Sophia's management team, we just came back from Paris Fashion Week. We got back last night. So we were exploring new businesses together. So it's a shared risk for us, and everybody is accountable. So yes, team is very important. I agree with you on that, Jackie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to dismiss the numbers, but I feel, if I've got somebody leading that business who gets the numbers and talks to the numbers to me all day, we just talk numbers all day long. Of course, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, as I say, I'm an accidental angel investor. I don't have your experience of being an investment banker. I come at it from a retail, I come at it from a retail perspective, and to me, it's all about sales. Who's your customer? What are you selling? Do they want it? So that's my kind of barometer of success.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you both. Some very wise words to take away. So I have one last question, as we've got just under 2 minutes. So where is the next 10 billion women-led sector in the UK? Would you say femtech, climate, AI ethics, longevity, or creator commerce? Any of those?
I would say,
yeah, go on.
Sorry, I would say femtech, because women hold up half the skies, and society is waking up to that. So I think we're going to see an explosion in that, with some structural changes that we're already seeing in place.
Yeah, and I would say similar. I mean, I have invested in femtech, but also I would say longevity, because some of the femtech sits in long, it kind of crosses over, because we're all living longer, and if we're going to live longer, we need health span, right? It's no good having lifespan if the last 20 years of your life is spent in pain and misery, right? So we want to have healthier, longer lives. So I think there's an absolutely enormous focus there in the longevity economy. And then within that, the femtech piece, I've invested in a great business, which is wearable tech. It's not just for women, but I think it will be a women, most of our customers are women at the moment, the people who've come across it, because they get it, because it's to do with the vagus nerve, and women are much more into their bodies than men. So yeah, I think femtech, longevity economy, that's where a lot of the opportunity is. And it's a great time for women.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your International Women Month, and I'll see you both again soon. Thank you for your time. Bye.
Thank you very much.